What's up guys, welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. Today we are going to attempt to make a custom exhaust for the KZ750. Went ahead and closed the garage door to get rid of some of the road noise, and also it's actually cold here in Texas, which is ridiculous. That's not why I live here, but it did bring out my Classic Octane hoodie. So if you guys want one of these, I actually just added hoodies and 3/4 sleeves and a couple of other products to my website. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go check it out. I got stickers and all kinds of stuff. It all goes to helping to support these builds. So now that I got that out of the way, I've got to kind of see all of the parts we bought. So if you saw in the last video, I picked up this stainless 12-inch universal muffler. I got it from Diamond City Cycles, but it's actually made by another company. I don't remember who makes it offhand. I'll throw a link to everything you see in this video in the description below. The stainless 2-in-1 pipe I got off of Amazon. And basically, I want the muffler to end up somewhere around this area. I'm going to need to go ahead and unbolt and move my electronics. I'm just kind of going to put them under here for now. I do have a plan to kind of relocate those a little bit later, but basically they're going to be in the way. I want to tuck this up nice and close so that when the seat's on, you know, we can obviously sit and not have this be burning the side of our legs. We are going to wrap it, and if you see my Triumph build, I have the exhaust run right next to the engine, right over or kind of underneath my legs. And with the exhaust wrap, I actually don't have any problems with heat on that. So I'm hoping to kind of get a similar vibe with this. Got to figure out what kind of angle we want. So I don't know, a lot of custom work to do today. I haven't ever made an exhaust before, like I mentioned, so it's going to be a learning curve for all of us. So I went ahead and taped up the collector and the muffler, kind of where I'm thinking. The idea there being, you know, I'll probably jump up there in a minute and just see how my leg kind of falls. You know, obviously I don't want it resting on my leg, so I got to figure out something like this is going to work. I think I'm going to have to trim off the bracket in there just to suck it in maybe another 3/4 of an inch, because that will make a big difference when it comes to my left calf hitting it. As far as materials go, so we obviously have the 2 pieces from the stock exhaust, one coming out there, one coming out here. I also have these 2 exhaust pipes from another one of my bikes, I think maybe a CB550, something like that. The tube diameter is like maybe 1 millimeter, possibly up to 2 millimeters difference, but it's really, really close, so I think that's going to work fine. And the idea here, again, is that we can kind of scavenge some of the parts together I have and slice and dice and kind of make this work. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So you just picture, you know, this one coming off, making a pretty tight turn around here, and then connecting to one of those pipes, then this one coming out here, making a 180 bend, you know, probably down to about here, and then up into most likely this bottom one. So one will kind of come around through the other. I wonder if I could get it tight enough to actually come through this opening, you know, kind of around there, underneath this one, and then hug the head up to that top pipe, and this one just goes up and around to the bottom one. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It may be a little ambitious, but I think that's gonna work. So what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna go ahead and start with that far pipe over here. I'm gonna cut it, I don't know, probably cut it around here, twist it like, you know, 90 degrees or so, and start to see if we can't piece together this pipe, and we'll kind of go from there. So what I'm doing now is making some of these little pie cuts. So the idea here, if you're not familiar, is you do a bunch of these pie cuts, which on this saw, I don't have like an exact angle gauge, so I'm shooting for like 9 degrees per cut, which means put together they're 18 degrees, so that we can make like 45s without having to use like 8 of these things. But I also don't want them to be such big angles that it only takes, you know, 2 to make a 45-degree angle, because then it's going to be really like notchy, if that makes sense, not like super smooth. So basically what I did is I set this to as close to 9 degrees as I can get it. I have my piece of exhaust tube that I ground all the chrome off of. 1, so that it'll weld easier, and 2, I think if you weld on chrome, the fumes are super toxic. So we ground all the chrome off, put it in this is my Evolution metal cutting saw. So it's like a miter saw, but for cutting metal. I like this so much better than those abrasive chop saws because this is a lot cleaner cut. It doesn't produce a lot of heat in the part, and it's just, I don't know, overall it's just a lot better, a lot quieter than using an abrasive chop saw. I do have this on my Amazon store as well. So what I did is I marked 2 lines on the pipe itself, because basically what we're doing is we're slicing it, then we're rotating it, and then slicing it again, and that's what's giving us this kind of cut. So basically we don't want like one side to be cut straight and the other side to be cut at 9 degrees. We want 9-degree angles kind of opposing each other. That way we go up, you can put this up against our pipe, you know, put one of these here, and then another one, and you can kind of see, and this is going to be hard to hold, but hopefully you can see what I'm going after here. This one's a little small, but we can start to weld those together, and that's what helps us get that nice smooth radius. So basically what I'm going to do is cut out like 20 or 30 of these things, basically probably going to use this whole pipe, just so that we can start to get them in place and tack them as we go, and I'll show you that process. But I wanted to show you how I was going about making my little pie cut pieces that we're going to utilize here in a minute. So I got all my pie cuts deburred and cleaned up. Basically what I did is just hit them all on the belt sander to kind of true up the surfaces and make sure they're nice and clean. And then I just took a little Noga deburring tool. You just kind of run it on the inside, clean up all the little edges. So I went ahead and cut this exhaust pipe as well, just as the bend started, so that I can start to get my angle right. What I'm probably going to do is make a little mark, just like a small one on one of the fins and then a small one on the pipe itself. That way, if this moves at all, we can make sure we get our orientation back the right way, because that's going to become very, very important right now. So let me grab some of these pie cuts. Basically what we're going to be doing now is taking these cuts and starting to add on kind of like this. So the idea here is that we're going to try and loop this around, obviously making sure we leave as much clearance as possible for the tire. So try and keep this somewhat nice and tight. We don't want it to be like a, you know, straight 90-degree angle, because that's going to really you know, kill our exhaust flow. So basically I'm just going to find the right number of these pie cuts that work, and then I'm going to start to mark them. I'll put like a number 1, number 2, number 3 on the cut itself, and then also draw a line across it. That way if something happens and it falls apart or something, I can put it back together how it was. So basically we're just going to work through this, and once I get it pretty darn close, I'll start to use some little pieces of tape to hold it, and basically just trying to get it to where we have a straight piece right there. As soon as I have that, I'll pull the welder out and I'll actually start to just tack weld it to try and hold it. So again, this is the first time I'm doing this, but so far so good with kind of how it's all coming together. Try to bring you guys in close to what I'm doing here. So I got what I think are the first 3 kind of lined up, and then I cut this piece off the exhaust. So basically just need one last piece so that this is pointing straight through the frame where we want to end up. So I'm just trying to kind of dig around and match. It's getting a little bit difficult to hold, so we're about to the point of starting to tack weld this stuff so I don't have to rely on tape. Something pretty darn close to that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the welder, like I said, start to tack up at least these first 3, and we can finalize the last one and the longer pipe. We'll be well on our way. Well, now that I'm looking at this, I think I made my first mistake. And what I had forgotten is that I wanted this pipe to go up a little bit higher so that this one can loop around and kind of go underneath it. So it's not too far off. But what I honestly think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to break off the bottom 2 pie cuts maybe, and basically raise this whole pipe up like, I don't know, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. That way it kind of comes directly under this exhaust instead of kind of closer down to this engine case. So just lift it up a little bit. Again, that's why we tack weld it. I can literally just hold on to one side and bend the pipe back and forth and break it off. So it's by no means a big deal to change it now, but I did forget about that. I was thinking this one was going to be the bottom pipe, but I think it makes more sense to route it a little bit higher and then have this one loop around and be the bottom of the two that go into our collector. So now I'm just trying to think, do I just keep making, you know, this first pipe all the way through, then make the second pipe? I'm thinking that's the way I go. That way I can make this first one, you know, get the clearance and everything right, and then I can just kind of match it with the second one. So let's do that. Let me talk to you a little bit about how I'm gonna kind of connect the exhaust. So basically what's gonna happen is I'll use, this is a relatively straight piece. Let me use this one to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So these are designed to be a slip fit. So they slip into there, and that's what makes the kind of seal. And what I did is I bought some exhaust springs. So if you're not familiar with what those look like, installed, here's them on my CB550. And basically what you do is I need to create some little hoops on one side, some little hoops on the other side of the connector, and then you connect them together with a spring, and that's what kind of holds everything together. It holds it tight enough to create an airtight seal. So that's exactly what we're going to try to mimic on this guy. Is going to be, you know, somewhere around here we'll weld on a little hoop, and then on the other exhaust, and then tight, so there'll be spring on each side, kind of holding it in. So that's the goal. So what I'm going to do is probably make a straight piece that slides all the way in, and then maybe has like that much on this side. That way I can know, you know, exactly what I need to match up to. So it's going to have to come out a little bit, wrap under here, and then connect into right there. So I got this pipe in place. Basically I just kind of tried to hug the head, you know, give it a little bit of clearance so that I can kind of move around and have some airflow, but you know, keep it nice and tight. What I'm doing is just taking like interesting bends like this that just came in the exhaust and just trying to figure out where I can utilize them. You know, might as well use some like nice mandrel bends. So like here's an example. That fits in real nice right there. Starts to give us that turn back. I still have clearance for my 10 mil so that you can change the oil and get to the sprocket and stuff without having to take the exhaust off. So that's looking pretty good right there. Okay, so let me move this magnet up a little bit. Make sure it's seated in all the way. So now I'm just kind of looking at the other bends I still have. I still have this guy, which I think could be utilized pretty easily to get us down from the exhaust manifold, or the, you know, the actual flange. So this pipe I'm probably going to cut a little bit closer so that we can start the bend sooner. Start to give us a little bit of a twist like that. You know, basically I want to keep that nice and tight, and I want to see if I can utilize this bend at all. I don't really need it over here, so we might as well, you know, because if I did a little pie cut there, that could bring me over. So this is basically what I'm doing, is just kind of messing around with the different pipes and seeing what works, seeing what I can cut and mix around. And like I said, it seems to be coming together pretty nicely, but we'll see when it's kind of all tacked in place how it's really going to look. But just kind of giving you guys little updates as I go to try and piece this thing together. Next update. It's looking pretty ugly at the moment, just my welds, but again, these are just kind of half tack welds. We are going to just TIG weld it and clean them up and paint it and wrap it, so keep that in mind. But I tried to match, you know, the angle of this pipe that has that kind of natural bend in it, like we said earlier. So this will be up just a little bit higher, you know, so I can still have access to that bolt. So that's kind of what we're dealing with right there. So I'm going to probably throw 1 or 2 more tacks on the top pipe, and then we will start to fabricate this one just to go right there, and then we'll be able to get a really good look at how it's going to be kind of totally done. just triple, quadruple check everything, and then we can move on to pulling it off and finish welding it and all that. But give you guys a little update. It's coming along for my very first full exhaust system. I'm pretty happy. I would say 8 out of 10 happy. So keep on going. Next update, got this side in place. So that's all the tubes. I think it looks pretty damn good. You know, I kind of wish this was a little bit more equal, you know, and basically could have matched that. Like this line matches well, and that of course goes in well. This kind of slightly gets wider, but I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I'm really happy with that. So I actually decided the next thing I'm going to do is start what I can only imagine is going to be a long, tedious process of finish welding all of this. Just because that's going to be the most time-consuming thing that's left. The exhaust springs, I don't have the right wire to kind of bend into the little hoops that these are going to attach to, so I either need to go to the store and buy something that'll work as a hoop, or buy some wire that I can bend to get that going. I forgot to pick that up ahead of time. For the muffler to the collector, I do have this clamp, so that's going to clamp on there to secure the muffler, you know, airtight. And I'm also going to utilize that threaded bolt that'll be kind of underneath the backside here as our rear mount. So to keep this thing from bouncing all around, again, this is a Scrambler that in theory will have some off-road duty. So we need to make sure that muffler is nice and secure. So I figure this is going to be a perfect place. It's far enough back to support. It's also going to, like, you know, that's the merge of the two kind of sections, the exhaust and the muffler. So I think that's going to be a good point to mount it. I just don't know where we're going to do a bracket or anything yet. So we're going to figure that out at a later date as well. But at least for now, we are going to get to work TIG welding the rest of this up. Got one side done, all welded up. I cleaned up the welds. Just, by no means stacking dimes on a TIG welder, but you know, it's really solid. It looks good. Cleaned it up. Like I said, I'm going to paint it with some exhaust paint, but I need to go pick that up tomorrow, as well as those little metal tab thingamajigs we talked about. I was welding up the other one, and unfortunately, we totally ran out of argon. So I am going to have to run to the welding supply store tomorrow. So we're going to clean it up for tonight, and we'll be back in 1 second with some more argon. And like that, we have a brand new bottle of argon. So overnight, I thought about this a little bit more, and I've kind of come to a conclusion, but let me walk you through the steps. So basically, when I pulled this first pipe out, the one that comes from the right side of the bike and through here, it pulled out relatively easily. But what I didn't realize at the time is that was because one of these joints, you know, was just tacked in place. It was actually kind of opened more than it should be. So now that I have it like 80% finish welded and it doesn't flex anymore, I can't get the pipe back in place. So that's one problem. Second problem is I think that is too tight of a bend. Like, you know what I mean? It comes right out of the engine and then makes a really tight turn. So what I think I'm honestly going to do is probably remake part of this pipe. I'll probably cut it right here, like cut off these welds, and then cut this probably more like, I don't know, somewhere else around here, and redo this whole section. And I'm going to try to redo it in a way that, one, gets me a smoother bend. I'll probably utilize some of the radiuses from the old factory exhaust that I still have. And two, makes it in a way where this pipe is removable. Because obviously we don't want to like weld a pipe in place that can't be taken off unless you cut it, because it's silly. So, long-winded explanation again. I think I'm going to redo half of this pipe, but I'll kind of show you as I go and we'll figure it out together. So I pretty much cut up that whole pipe, and we're basically starting from scratch. Cut this a little bit shorter. What it looks like I'm going to be able to do is, utilizing this nice 90 from one of the old exhausts, I can use 2 pie cuts to get us started in the right direction, and then match it up with this 90 and start us to point right towards there. So I went ahead and put on the other pipe and the muffler and everything so that when we get to that side of the bike we can do it. And I'm hoping I'm trying to figure out how I can test this. That this will give me the clearance I need to be able to get this on and off. Because the problem was that bend was so tight on the old setup that when I put the pipe in and I tried to rotate it, it was hitting the frame here. So I'm hoping that since this is a more gradual bend, that we'll have the room to kind of put it in and like rotate it like that. But again, I'm going to need to kind of tack all of these and then take the pipe on and off a few times and make sure that it's going to work. But I think I like that a lot better. It's a lot smoother of a bend, less pie cuts. So I think that's going to be nice. So we're going to move forward with this. I'm going to go ahead and get these things tacked into place, and we'll move on to that side of the bike and look at how we're going to connect it the rest of the way. Now that we got that pipe in place, I just need to connect this last bit here. And I have this bend, which is pretty nice, so I want to try to utilize that. So really, I think I'm just going to need like a, I don't know, we'll measure it, 2-3 inch straight piece. Should put this to about there, and then I'll just need another straight piece to connect into here, and I think that'll work. And again, we have to keep in mind that this piece has to come off. So we'll have to see. And I don't care if like the whole exhaust has to come off. You know, like I don't need each one of these pipes to be removable necessarily individually, if you know what I mean. Like I'm fine if you have to unbolt the muffler, take this off, and then take the pipes off. You know, that's just kind of the way it's going to have to be, I think. But as long as we can get these pipes off, it should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that, cut me a straight piece, and then tack it. And we'll do that pulling it on and off maneuver that I talked about. Then we'll worry about this little piece right here. So after about 47 different tries and having to shave little bits off here and there, I'm finally to the point where I can just squeeze the exhaust in. Mounts up nice. And I can just barely squeeze it back out. So that's about as perfect as it's going to get. I have a bunch of pretty heavy tacks on here, so I'm pretty confident it's not going to move much. But I am, now that I have my argon, going to go ahead and finish weld this piece up and hope that it doesn't warp too much. I'll probably go in pretty short little, you know, sections all around just to try to kind of mitigate the risk of warping it as much as possible. And then once I'm done, I'll bring you guys back and we'll test it one more time and hope that it still fits. All the finished welding done. Here's what she looks like. So I'm pretty darn happy with that. I mean, I had a little bit of an issue over here. So as I ground down, it just got a little bit on the thin side, so I ended up having to build it up a little bit, and I kind of went for, you know, it's not as smooth as it could be, but again, it's going to be painted and wrapped, so it doesn't really need to be perfect. Really, I didn't need to grind it down at all. So I had to build that up a little bit, but not a big deal. I like that bend a whole lot better. It's a lot smoother than what we had originally with the pie cuts. And then you see it kind of cuts through, meets up nicely with this one, goes into our connector and then out. Here's the top view. You see it kind of goes in. I got up there and I do have plenty of room for my leg. It'll be exhaust wrapped all the way up to this point, so the part where my leg goes next to it will be wrapped. So I think that's gonna do it for this part of the video. I'm sure it's a longer one. Just been working on this a couple of days, so things still to do are going to be obviously the springs. So I need to figure out what wire or whatever I'm going to get to bend those springs, mount for the rear, paint, wrap, and then that exhaust will be totally done. So in the next video we will do all of that, throw in our jets. If you didn't see the last video, we are replacing the jets so that we can run pod filters, and then we will be ready to start it up and see what it sounds like with the new exhaust. Well, that's where I'm going to call it on this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching me stumble through the process of making an exhaust from scratch. I learned a lot. I'm really excited that I took on this project, and I think it turned out pretty well. So I mean, a few things I would probably tweak, but you know, that's why we can make another one for the next bike, and I think this one's going to do us really well for this bike and is going to hold up nicely. Only time will tell. So like I said, in the next video we will paint it, wrap it, springs, mounts, all that extra stuff. So please throw a like on this video if you like this content. Subscribe if this is the kind of stuff you're into. One last time, I did add hoodies and 3/4 sleeves and a couple of other things to my site. So click the link in the description if you want to go check that stuff out. I'll see you guys soon.